I would like to call upon Mr. Prasann Kamath, sir, Operations Director for Mumbai CL.
Okay, before we start, one special mention for Veer Pratap. He is being selected in King's College London through the LNAT. He took the LNAT, and he'll be going to King's College, which is one of the best. Could not make it today. The reason why I thought I would mention this is because I'm sure in this audience there'll be someone who would be also interested in exploring options outside. So maybe in the next couple of weeks, we would have a session specifically for anyone who wants to also explore options outside India. What we are going to do now, over the next 45 minutes or 50 minutes, let's try to keep it short, I'm going to have a chat with all these achievers. We will broadly divide our chat into these 4 areas: the journey, their challenges, their preparation, and finally their support. And through this, the idea is that all the next gen sitting here would get some ideas, some indicators of what these guys went through. That could be some kind of a motivation for you to go forward, right? Okay, so let's start with their journey. And I think we'll keep it open, right? So please feel free to pick up the mic. There's a mic on every table, so please feel free. I want each one of you, if you can, maybe for the journey, we'll go each one of you. I just want all of you to tell me 2-3 things. This is for the audience as well. When did you start? So you took the exam in December. How early did you start your prep? And if you can also tell the board you came from, because a lot of questions come from how did you manage the 2 boards. We'll discuss that later. But if you can tell the board and the stream you come from, ISC Commerce or HSC Science, that would help. So can we start from Nidhi? Just tell me, when did you start your prep and a basic background of which board you come from?
Okay, so I started my prep back in January, so 12 months around to prepare. I am from HSC Commerce. Okay. So for me, HSC was not much of a focus. I only focused on the boards for like last 1 month or so. My entire focus was on CLAT. So for me, main challenge for me was...
We'll come to the challenges.
Okay.
Yeah, that should be it. Yeah, okay.
So I took ISC Science, which on retrospection seems a bit crazy, but I think it was a worthwhile journey because I was really interested in science, and going into law with a knowledge of science can be really important. Like you can get into aspects of patent law and so on and so forth. And I joined the 2-year program, but I would say I would have started towards the end of my 11th grade, like when we were getting into 2023, sorry.
Okay, ISC Science, as tough as it gets, right? Yeah.
Hi, I was in CBSE Science. I only took that because I was planning on doing engineering first. Otherwise, I would have taken arts. But yeah, I really struggled with science, but I could do it at the end.
Hi, I'm Advait. I did CBSE Humanities because that was what I was interested in. And I started my preparation about 1.5 years before CLAT. I think actually After the CL Achievers Meet 2 years ago was when I had the motivation to start.
I'm Mugdha, and I was in CBSE Commerce, and I chose Commerce because I didn't want to take Arts or Humanities, so that was the only option left. And I started my prep also towards the end of 11th.
Hi, I'm Tisha. I transitioned from CBSE Humanities to Commerce, and I started I joined CL in June 2022, but the preparation motivation started in the beginning of Jan.
Hi everyone, I'm Rajvani. I took CBSE Commerce and I was on the 2-year plan, but I would say consistently I started preparing a year ago.
Hi, I'm Ananya. I took ISC Commerce and I started in May, the vacation between my 11th and 12th.
Hi everyone, I'm Sara. I took HSE Commerce and I was a part of the 2-year group, but I seriously started my prep when CLAT 2023 happened, so for 1 year, consistently.
Hi everyone, I'm Dia. I'm from CBSE Commerce, and yeah, even I started my prep after CLAT 23.
Hi everyone, I started my prep after last year's Achievers Meet, so that's around May, and I'm from CBSE Science.
Hi everyone, I'm Sanvi. I also started my prep. I joined CL in August-September 2022, but the active part of my prep started after CLAT 2023, and I'm from HSC Arts with Maths.
I'm Divya, and I was also from HSC Commerce. I was also on the 2-year plan, so all my concepts were clear from the start. So I started studying, I think 6 months back, 6 months from before CLAT.
Hi everyone, it's Nandini and I'm from HSC Science, and now I am into BSc LLB, so now it justifies that it's a science board. And I started my preparation back in December, last to last.
Hi everyone, I'm Madhura, and I was also a part of the 2-year CL plan, but to be honest, I seriously started preparing for my CLAT since April, May last year.
Okay, thank you. So let me tell you, this is for the audience now, right? And we will talk about the challenges they faced, because obviously the one challenge that I'm sure everyone was thinking about is how did they balance their 12th? That's a typical question that comes every year. How much did you focus on your 12th? But you can see that pretty much every combination is there on the stage. HSC Commerce, HSC Arts, HSC Science, CBSE, ISC, all the boards are there. So I don't really think it's about the board, it's not about the school. I think it's more about, as I keep on saying, how badly you want it, right? So for those who have issues with, my college attendance is very strict and there's other college which is not, trust me guys, eventually that doesn't matter. It's just about how badly you want the best, right? All of you agree? Because the one thing I can definitely tell you is that in the last 6 to 7 months, they have put in everything. We'll come to their efforts. How many of you were there, just a raise of hands, in the last Achievers or the one before that? Okay, you were not there, and the 2 of you not there. Okay, the rest of you were there. Okay, how does it feel now to be on the other side? How many of you thought next year I have to be here? Yeah? I'm sure that would be a thought that would have come. It's an obvious thought. Everyone sitting here, this is it. Next year, the goal is to be on the stage. Let's look at how the journey started. I want to know what was your lowest or the first. I'm sure the lowest mock score would be pretty early on. What was the lowest mock score that you can think about? And by the way, I think when you started your journey, if I'm not mistaken, CLAT was 150? Yes. It became 120 later, right? So whatever score they tell you is out of 150, remember that. You need to understand that the CLAT changed and it became a 120 now. So they would have started with a 150 question mock. Can anyone, this is open for all of you, anyone wants to know what their scores are, especially for the ones who have a very bad score? Yeah.
56.
56.
Out of 150.
Out of 150 guys, it's not out of 120. So
Mine was 59.75.
59.7. Anyone lower than that?
Okay, this is really bad. 31.
31. Okay. Guys, there is hope.
Mine was 37.
37.
I'm
just making you feel better now.
Mine was 49, which was CLAT 2023. That was my first mock. And that was 49 out of 150.
You actually took the CLAT?
Yeah, I gave it as a practice exam.
You went to the center and took the CLAT?
Yeah. I did that so that I could understand how the exam environment works.
So all the guys who are here for CLAT 26, you have to write the CLAT in 25, right? Okay, great. 53 you said?
49.
49.
Yeah.
Okay, but that was out of 120.
150.
Oh, 150
CLAT
then. Oh, that
2023.
was a 150. Yeah, okay. Anyone here wants to lower that? No? I don't want a highest because that will psych people. Anyone highest? Kisi ka? Anyone who had crossed 80 or something? You had. Yeah, I know. You had. Huh? Okay. Bottom line, guys, it's again not about where you stand today. Right? 6 months is a lot of time. You go 6 months, and this is now for the guys who are going to write the CLAT in 2025, or 24, sorry. That will be called CLAT 25. The December CLAT will be called CLAT 25. Guys, 6 months is enough time. For the guys who are going to write it in 26, don't be complacent. You need to do well in CLAT 25. Right? That will be a good yardstick to gauge your progress in terms of where you stand. Great. So let's also look at one more aspect. Which was the section that intimidated you the most? And I know the maths ko chhod dete. I think Quant would be a natural answer, but out of the, let's take the reading sections first. Which was the section that intimidated you the most? We can start with you quickly.
Logical reasoning.
Logical reasoning?
Logical.
Logic?
This will be a universal pain point.
I think it's a universal pain point, right? Logic? Anyone with a different answer? Yeah, you had a different answer. Okay.
Legal for me.
Legal.
Yeah, same legal.
Legal. The guys find legal tough. The girls are more logical. Huh? Okay.
I found GK tough.
No, reading sections. Out of the reading section, GK and maths is universal. So.
I think for me it's swapped between logic and legal. Like one day I would be intimidated by either.
Okay. Anyone else? So logic, legal was the one that intimidated you, right? Okay. And then eventually, how did it happen, right? So as you moved forward, did the opinions change? Did you find that logic was still tough, but legal started getting better, or was it the other way around? Or was it like you kept on going up and down in both?
I guess like for me in legal, like I try to identify the patterns in the different questions because ultimately they're trying to test the same thing. Like they test the same concept, but they just twist it in different ways. So like I tried reading about the contracts and like different legal concepts on the side, like through the career launcher material. And then when I did the mocks again, I could see like the similarities between them, and then my scores naturally improved. Obviously, it didn't reach too high because it's a bit like subjective and thoda hard at times. But yeah, I definitely feel like improved in that section.
Even I did pretty much the same thing he did for legal. When I realized I was having trouble, I first moved it to doing at the start. And I also, I looked through all my mocks and saw which topics in legal I was struggling in more. For example, if I got vicarious liability wrong 3 times in the last 2 mocks, I would go and I would redo vicarious liability. I might have asked Namrata ma'am for some help with that so that I would improve in the next mock.
Okay.
I sort of got the same template for logic as they mentioned, that I would understand what kind of questions they're asking, because at the end it would just boil down to one thing that you need to identify, which is the main idea. Once you get the main idea of whatever they're talking about right, all other correlated questions like strengthening, weakening, or any other template questions that you have in logic automatically fall in the same line. So I use that kind of tactic for logic as well.
I had a similar concern where I had this mental block when it came to logical reasoning because I just felt like it was more difficult than the other reading sections. And then I attended one extra class where I was told that don't look at reading sections as separate sections. You're essentially doing the same thing in everything. You're reading a passage and you're giving answers based off that passage. You're doing English that way, you're doing logic that way, and you're doing legal that way. So I started looking at all 3 sections as just one section where the content in the passage might differ, but the way you're solving all 3 sections is more or less the same. And I feel like that helped a lot with the block I had with logical reasoning, where I just looked at all 3 as the same thing, and then it came back on track.
Okay. Any other? Yeah.
For me, logic, I wasn't bad at logic entirely. It was just assumption questions which I sucked at. So majorly, I pestered Palash sir for that. And he suggested me these Baines techniques, where we could eliminate the options, and thus, I won't say I was great at logic till the end, but it was way better than starting.
I think somebody else mentioned, I think the order of my attempt was differentiated when I got to know that I was bad at logic or I wasn't performing too well. And so I shifted it to the beginning of my practice or my attempt at every week. So I would know that I think the fatigue was what was affecting my marks at the end of the day.
One interesting thing that came out was that the one section they found more difficult, they did not shove it till the end. They brought it at start. Right? If you look at a couple of opinions, I was finding legal tough, I started with legal. I was finding logic tough, I started with logic. So that is something that you could try out. That's a great strategy to have, because a lot of times, the last section that you do today will be the section that you struggle the most. So yeah, it does make sense to try out the various combinations, right? Okay, so we will, so journey started. We would look at the challenges. And we would look at the first challenge, which is outside your CLAT prep. One question I'm sure that everyone would want to know, how did you guys manage your 12th? Because a lot of you started taking it seriously after the 11th got over, right? It was the last 7-8 months. That's the only advice I think CLAT 26 students should not take, and that is to treat your 11th as a honeymoon phase. Please take your 11th seriously. If you have done a great job with 11th, I think your 12th becomes relatively easy. However, since most of you started taking CLAT really seriously in the last 6-8 months, there were 2-3 things that would have bothered you. One, GK. Second, your 12th, especially the ones in ISC, science, for example, would be serious subjects. Arts, probably you can keep it some theory subjects for the end. How did you manage the two? Was there pressure to do well in 12th? Were you saying, I would leave my 12th later? Did the change in the CLAT from May to December worked to your advantage, or did you think it as a problem? And we can start with anyway. Yeah.
So I think from the outside, you have to recognize that boards aren't really that important. Like, you don't get admission to college, to any of these NLUs through board marks, or any other colleges through boards. I mean, that's CUET. And there's just the 45% eligibility criteria. So whenever you're in a doubt, you should prioritize CLAT over boards. Obviously, you have that 3-4 month window after CLAT in December to prepare for boards well, and I'm sure you can do get a good percentage then. And as for managing CLAT and boards, I think people have this misconception that you can't do both together. I feel like they both test completely different things, right? Boards is more like syllabus-based testing. You go to school, there's a fixed portion, you study that portion, and you give an exam on that. CLAT is like, the syllabus is like everything, right? GK, and then English, and then logical is very vague subjects, right? It's all practice-based. It's all like conceptual. It's all about testing your patience of mind, your thinking ability, right? So I feel like they're completely different things, and you shouldn't blame your boards and say, oh, I can't do it because of 12th, right? Because I feel like they're more different than you think.
So I do think that CLAT takes priority over boards, but I think while you're preparing, there should be a focus on subjects that you find challenging or tough in 12th. So for me, that was math, and I would just give tests and score really badly in maths, but I'd give the exams, but give my priority on CLAT. So I would say that. Give tests repeatedly for everything.
Okay.
For me, I left my boards in corner. It was all about CLAT, so my priority was CLAT only. But yeah, I do think right now I had to, in my 11th standard, you can do one thing that you can already prepare for 12th. So in 12th, you won't have that much boards ka tension. So yeah, that's the thing.
Personally, I had also left boards completely, like 12th ka studies. But I would not recommend you to do that, because after that, it becomes really hectic. But I was confident in myself that I could catch up after CLAT, because you have a few months left after boards. So yeah, I had just focused on CLAT.
Yeah, I think like many people here, I also placed my primary reliance on CLAT. Actual 12th course was not as hectic because I was HSC Humanities, but I was in St. Xavier's College, which has a very high attendance threshold. So I had to attend college, which was 30 kilometers away from my house every day. So that essentially took a major chunk of my day away from my CLAT prep. Sure. So I would just attend classes because it was humanities. Listening to the teacher did half of my work. I just had science maths, which I had to do, which I kind of left entirely for the part after CLAT, which is not a good idea. I'd suggest I had to do it entirely in a month. But yeah, the last 5-6 months, definitely CLAT took a major reliance over whatever I was doing in the day. Okay. And I think it works for your advantage. Since CLAT is now in December, you can put a lot of effort, a lot of time in CLAT and leave boards for the last 3-4 months.
Absolutely.
For me, I think, like most people said, CLAT did take a priority, but I think as a part of my personality, I take in a lot of stress, even if the teachers go like, you should do well in your boards as well. So that's why my boards also was really, really important for me. But I kind of had that idea that if I put in my all in the months after my board, after my CLAT, then I could do well in my boards as well. And technically, I will say that I think I put in more work and effort in my last February month before my boards than I ever did for CLAT, because I would go to school, I would attend extra classes as well, because that's the way I had kept my boards. It was completely in the back burner. And personally, I feel like a solution for this is truly talking to your teachers, explaining to them your situation, which I'd done back in 11th. So they were very understanding of it, and they were also very helpful. So yeah, I would say that's a solution which I would recommend.
Adding on to what Tisha said, I am the type of person that also knew in the back of my head that boards weren't important and they really weren't going to get me anywhere, but I still had that thing in my head where it's boards, like I cannot score terribly in it. So one thing that I did that worked for me, and it's a tip that I would like to give everyone else, is also that in my 11th grade, my reading sections, I practiced so much that I had reached this level where I was comfortable with how I was going, and I had gotten into a schedule. And that is why in my 12th grade, thanks to the effort that I put in my 11th, in my 12th, it was possible for me to give time to my HSC commerce subjects like accounts, like SP, which are a bit more challenging because of the fact that I put in effort in my 11th. So for anyone giving CLAT 26, putting in effort in your 11th makes a huge difference when it comes to balancing boards and CLAT in that last year.
Okay.
I also had a similar thing where I split my effort in 11th standard somewhat evenly, though CLAT absolutely took #1 priority. But I did do a good amount of work for 11th, especially because I had taken applied maths with humanities, which was tough. But the one thing that I think is very important for that last 6-month period before CLAT, where you, because it's in December now, you can completely leave most of your work for 3 months after CLAT. In 11th grade, I would really recommend getting the confidence of your school teachers and getting them to believe in you. A lot of us sometimes feel like the school teachers hate us and they want the worst for us. But all of them are really capable of being very understanding, but nevertheless, it can really grate on you in those last 6 months if you go to school every day and they keep on telling you your score in the terminals was so bad, you're a good student, what are you doing? It can really mess with your mental facilities. So in 11th standard, if you can prove to them that you will work and that you have their confidence in doing well in the boards, then they really will be more understanding when you can't do that in 12th. And they will let you have that extra space and that extra time to put work on CLAT in 12th, knowing that, okay, this child is good, he will do the work after CLAT and he will do well in his boards.
Like, I'll agree to what Advait said. And one more thing I'd like to add is, while in 11th, I understood what the subjects I was weak in commerce. So I understood that accounts was difficult for me. So I took help, I took tuitions throughout the year for accounts, and that helped me. I was relying on the teacher that he'll get my portion done for accounts, and I could comfortably spend my time for CLAT.
I think a couple of things are coming out. By the way, are the HSC results out? Yeah. All boards are out? Yeah. Anyone who has done very badly? Everyone's done amazing, no? Everyone is happy with what you got. I mean, let me tell you guys one thing. I have not seen, in my last 15 years, I have not seen too many people who have gone into the top NLUs and have done miserably in the 12th. It's almost zero, right? I have not seen even one person. So I think for my advice to all the people who are in 11th right now, or going from 10 to 11th, CLAT 26, please take your 10th, 11th seriously. Both in terms of, a lot of times your concepts of 12th may be covered in 11th itself. I'm not talking about CLAT now. So if your accounts concepts are good in 11th, that helps in 12th. So please take both seriously. I think 11th is a phase which really makes your life easy when you go to 12th standard. So that would be one. And second that came out, it would be great if you are in schools specifically, you can go and talk to your coordinators or your principal to just tell them that, look, this is what my aim is. The exam is in December, what kind of leeway can I get? So it could be a leeway, for example, in terms of writing the prelims late. Maybe in December, instead of December, you can write the prelims in Jan. So those kind of leeways, or maybe some attendance leeways can be given to you. So that would be great. No harm in asking the schools, right? About whatever leeways can be given. Okay, let's now go to the next challenge. And now I want to understand the biggest pain point. I'm sure a lot of people would love to know, because I'm going to marry the second and the third. In some sense, the challenge also is your preparation. So I kind of will marry the second and the third point together. And let's start with each of the section. And we'll start with what was the challenge you faced in that section, and then the preparation. How did you go about with that challenge? Right? So let's start with the most beautiful section, GK. General knowledge, right? It can psych a lot of people when they start preparing, because there is no syllabus as such. Okay? And I don't know whether you guys loved the CLAT this year, the one you took. No. I don't think it was the best GK. I think for those who are not aware of the CLAT, this year the guy who made the GK section forgot that it's a GK section. He was probably told you have to make a RC passage. So he made a passage and made sure that all the answers were there in the passage.
Guys, y'all can look at A-Lit GK for real GK, the NLU Delhi entrance test.
Okay, so can we start with GK? When did you guys, what was the challenge you felt? And we'll get into the prep part later in terms of Manthan versus news canvas versus Hajar sources in the world versus mocks, and what were you focusing on? And the most important question, how many of you read the newspapers every day? Right? So we'll focus on that, but first, the challenge. How many of you were intimidated by GK? And how many of you loved it? How many of you felt that this is inherently my strength? Inherently, you felt that it was a strong point for you.
So I've always been into current affairs quite a bit. I used to do Model United Nations before 11th and 12th a lot. And because of that, I was not that intimidated by GK. And I kept up with current affairs regularly anyway. I had to do more effort for CLAT, obviously.
I remember your scores used to be pretty decent in GK as well, right from the day one, yeah.
I just always thought it was really fun to learn new things, find out what's happening in the world, different world affairs, like history, politics, so on and so forth. Because I feel like even as a lawyer, I think it requires you to be up to date with certain things and to be well read. Especially in law school, I'm sure a lot of these things are tested in the different, because we're doing a BA LLB, Bachelor of Arts, and BA you have a lot of humanities based stuff. For most of us, I mean, unless you do BBA and all, but in BA you have a lot of humanities. To do well in those courses requires you to be well read, and yeah, that's something which I do.
Okay, how many were bad in GK? Never ever touched a newspaper. The only thing you touched was the Bombay Times. The Times of India used to come. That was for your dad. Economic Times was a strict no-no. And Bombay Times was wonderful. So yeah, you didn't even touch Bombay Times, right? I would like just to open up now in terms of the challenge you had in GK. When did you start taking it really seriously?
I think the last 7 to 8 months. Essentially, it should be right after CLAT 2023. Everything that covers for the last 1 year is included in your GK's so-called syllabus. But yeah, I think the biggest thing that intimidates you is that you don't know how far it goes, you don't know how deep it goes, and you don't know what can be connected from the past. Yeah. So you essentially have to read from every genre, every news, and things that are even connected. Because I remember, I think in CLAT 2023, it was about the Satyam scam, which was way back there, and they connected it to something very recent.
Yeah.
So you have to go in deep, and I think that was one of the biggest things that intimidated me out of GK. Contrary to other people, I did not enjoy it at all.
So my biggest challenge in GK was how much I was doubting myself and second guessing myself again, because like she said, there is so much and there is already so much current affairs that's happening, and then you have to go back into static GK of that and you have to read history. And I was at a point where I was just like, I'm doing so much, but it is just not enough. And then I realized that, okay, thinking this way is not getting me anywhere. Realistically, I'm not even motivated to read more because of how negatively I'm thinking. So I narrowed my sources down to 2 things. I only touched Manthans and News Canvas, and I just kept reading that more and more, and that ended up making me feel more confident about GK, and that helped me with attempting GK in my mocks and actually having the guts to open my mock paper and attempt GK at full, and that's what helped me in CLAT as well.
So newspapers was a no-no?
I did not touch newspapers,
Absolutely
very
no-no.
honest.
How many of you read newspapers right through the last 1 year regularly? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, a lot of you actually. Okay, which newspapers?
Indian Express.
Hindu?
Yeah, the Hindu.
Hindu?
Indian Express.
Indian Express? Hindu? Okay.
Like Hindu only, but I'd like to say that for me, newspapers weren't a source of GK. It was source of reading, like varieties of reading.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreeing with her. It was only for editorials I used to read.
Okay, wonderful. So
For the GK part though, I would say Indian Express Explained was the best section. I cannot stress enough on this. Literally, that was the one section I remember Vineet sir would come into class on Sunday and all of us would be like, okay, ye tab aaya tha, ye tab aaya tha. And it was just the best section. Like if anyone is aspiring to give CLAT, that is the one section if fortunately your GK doesn't come as the one which came, but that's the section which, the Indian Express Explained section is the one section which will make or break your GK for me personally.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I think for people who are starting to read their newspaper right now, I think they should start with Indian Express. Their explain page, as she mentioned, covers all contemporary news topics that are going on, that are even relevant with respect to our paper. And they cover everything that you are supposed to know. So facts, figures, analysis, things that can be connected back to the similar genre of topics. It's everything, and in fact, more than what you need. So I think if you read that section of page, if nothing else from the newspaper, even that
for the benefit of everyone, Indian Express?
Explained.
Explained.
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
So it will cover all your contemporary news topics, everything that is relevant with respect to CLAT. And I think just going through and reading, or I would say studying it, will do as much as GK prep as you need.
Okay, what about, yeah.
And one more thing, I think a lot of GK is about educated guesswork. Like you can't be expected to know the answer, especially in certain instances to like very obscure questions, but in CLAT there are 4 options, right? And you can easily, and some are very easy to eliminate, right? So then you can really narrow down the options and then make a better guess and increase your chances of getting that question right.
True.
So personally, when I first started my preparation for GK, the biggest challenge that I felt was about how overwhelming it was. So I used to read a variety of sources, and basically I used to read a lot and never used to get anything. So I think a very important tip is to find one source that works for you and stick with it. Many times you're not going to be able to get questions from though, but you have to have the faith that it'll work out.
Yeah, I agree with her, definitely. Well, the day I started GK, I had no idea what I was reading. It was so confusing, everything. And I just read from News Canvas and Manthan and editorials in newspaper, that's it.
For me, I started with Drishti IAS and UPSC GKs, but then it turned out that is too much, very vast information and not very relevant to CLAT preparation. But Manthan are actually very relevant, and there were questions in 2024 and 2023 directly from the Manthan. So yeah, that's it for me.
Okay, within the Manthan, anyone would like to explain as to how you went about with it? Because for the benefit of those, Manthan is the updates that come from there are daily updates, there are weekly updates.
Daily, weekly, monthly.
And the monthly updates, right? So if anyone would like to tell the audience, how did you go about with the Manthan? Because one thing is to know I have to do Manthan, another is to say, what should be my plan? How do I go about with that?
I think I speak for both Advaita and me because we used to do GK together quite often. And I also had 2 other friends who we used to do GK often. So we used to pick up weekly Manthans and monthly Manthans used to be our revision thing. Like, did we miss anything? Weekly Manthans were very well formatted in a way that you had your national, international, sports and everything. And so what we used to do was, for example, Advait was very into the sports section. I cannot stress enough. He would not do any section but the sports section. He would pick that section up and he would explain it to us, and because he had a lot of extra knowledge also, so he would add that in, and that would also work as our static. For example, if there was an international event, because I remember Prigozhin had died, and I remember I texted him about it, and so it was a lot of the fact that we could connect events to the Manthans by being like, oh, we spoke about this that day, this is the joke you cracked that day. So it was very, I would like to say it was very well connected to our daily talks and everything, which is why it would also be retained. So yeah.
Also, I'd like to say we were very consistent about it. Every day, we very rarely missed a day. Every day, 9 o'clock, we would join Google Meet and we would do for like 2-3 hours. for a good like 1 year almost, or 9-10 months. Yeah. So like about August of 2022 we started, and we were very consistent, which I think is very important.
The one word I found interesting was we. So how many here were in a group for GK? How many of you made groups? Anyone made groups? You made a group.
Yeah.
How many people?
3 people.
3 people.
3 people.
3 people. Your group was?
Like 5.
5. Anyone else? All others solo? 2 people. Right? So one thing that works, guys, for GK is to have like-minded people coming together, maybe a small group of 3 people, 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, and then sharing those ideas, because I hope all of you would agree with me that retention is an issue. Right? It's not just about how much you read, it's also about retention. And a great way to retain it would be to discuss it with someone. Right? So group helps. Yeah, anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, so while reading Manthan or anything, I used to read it and make notes and underline stuff and then say it out aloud. That helped me a lot. I didn't have any other groups as such.
So the mirror was your...
Mirror, yeah, I just used to make a whole story out of it and recite it and actually explain it to my parents also, so that also helped. I discussed with my parents, so that was really helpful. And sometimes Manthan and all can be very overwhelming. You have to digest so many information in such less time, and yeah, so I did was say it out aloud. That helped.
Yeah.
So like the CL mocks, they're all from the Manthan. So like the mock that you're giving, it's like of the prior week. So I would just do the Manthan because then I would get marks in the mock. So that's...
Okay.
Yeah, I would actually place my primary reliance for GK on newspapers, as mentioned, Indian Express and Hindu. I would use the Manthans for revision. So the monthly Manthans I would use as a source of revision, or in case I have missed out on newspapers for a brief period of while, then with my study group, we used to divide the topics of Manthans. Each would take certain 5 to 7 topics. We would do some of our own research as well, and then we would explain those topics like to a class to the other 2 people. If I did not have my group, sometimes I'd explain the topics to my 10-year-old brother as well, who's not very keen on listening, but I have to force him through.
Guys, one thing, they're using everyone, parents, brothers, jo milega kisi ko nahi chhodna hai. Right? Please involve everyone. You can. Grandmother, grandfather included? Yeah? Yeah.
My biggest challenge with GK was not retaining it, because fortunately, once I read it once or twice, I remembered it, but my biggest challenge was staying consistent and actually reading it every single day, because when you're doing something like this for 7-8 months, it becomes so terribly boring to have to open it and do it every single day. So what I did was I had this huge whiteboard that I kept right in front of my bed, and every Sunday I created Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, all the days of the week, and I had, let's say, week 1 of June from News Canvas, and then May Manthan. And I used to circle it, and I used to give myself like a little treat every time something got circled, and I find that motivated me to complete more and more things, because I'm telling you, on Saturday night, when you look at that board and almost everything is circled, there's nothing that feels better than that. And adding on using everyone, oh my God, I use my parents so much. I used to sit with my mom for an hour every single week, and she used to quiz me. There were quizzes that came on News Canvas, and she used to sit and take up those quizzes, and I used to try to not use the 4 options that came, and I used to try to answer off the top of my head, because then that means it's not just photographic memory, and it's not just memory. And you don't just remember it because the 4 options are given that way, you remember it because you actually know the content. So yeah.
For me, my biggest challenge was like my college had very strict attendance. So every day while going to college in the train, I would open my big Hindu newspaper right in the train compartment and read it right there. Or sometimes I would even listen to, audio news in the audio form, and just listen to that instead of music on the way to college. Go to college, grab my best friend, and I would just narrate the entire day's news to her, and she would gladly listen to it.
Wonderful. So now you...
I think
siblings, parents, now friends.
For people who have junior colleges which are in Churchgate or South Bombay, and they live away from it, I think it's a really good opportunity to use that train ride.
Travel time.
Yeah, because I had a 15-minute train ride from my house to the college one way. So on the way I would read Hindu, coming back I would read Indian Express. But I think there's so many sources that are available. You can listen to news podcasts, you can listen to audiobooks, or Doordarshan's news channels. They also provide really good news. So I think you have enough amount of sources to cover your GK from.
True.
For me, I used every single place where I can to read that. Single place where I can to read that. Like it was my physics class going on and I was reading GK Manthan. I was reading it in my family function, on Diwali, on wedding, everywhere.
So I think for me, GK was basically my weakest subject. I cannot count the number of times I've gone to Vineet sir and told him, you know, I got 0 in GK. I got 0 in GK for like 3-4 months consistently. Sometimes I would get like 2, 3. 7 was like my best score if I guessed really well. But I should not be saying this, but I only started GK in the last month, like in November for December, because I was very good at retaining stuff. So I just went through the month and I was not able to do the newspaper and stuff, but you should.
This is more of a tip, I think. Well, on the days that you're feeling lazy and you don't want to read anything as GK, one thing that I would do is pick up last week's mock and just read the topics that they have asked about, because if you just read more and more about that, that's basically covering 1 week of GK, but in a more concise form. Like, it's not something that you should do, but it's like for people who are lazy like me, so that's a good thing.
There are a couple sources of GK. I completely agree with like the podcasts and stuff. I would also listen to news podcasts on the way to school, on the train. A couple sources that like are very underrated. I thought Amit sir, I'd really like to thank him specifically, because in logical classes, every time for half an hour, 15 minutes beforehand, he would tell us all the GK of the past week, and he would be so funny, and it was so charming that we would all remember it perfectly after that. So thank you, Amit sir, for that. And another source that it's not very consistent, but I thought it helped me a lot. So everyone, when you have like say a 15-minute break, you just finished like analyzing a section of a mock, you want to take 15 minutes. Number one thing is like to pull out your phone and do something. And for me, that something was Twitter. I would just scroll endlessly. And one thing that I found very helpful is early on 11th, I was like, there's a problem. I don't want to stop, but I can't keep doing this. So I started following a decent amount of news, like space news and political news and stuff like that on Twitter. And now every time I would scroll, after like 2 normal posts, I would get a post about news, and I would just read that, and that split second of information gets compounded over and over again, and I felt that really helped me.
I agree. Let's be honest, who's not addicted to social media? So what can help you is to create what you see on your social media to be similar to what comes in CLAT, and that's exactly what I did. I was addicted to Instagram, still am, and what I did is I started following several news pages, almost every news page I could find. When you're reading, yes, they just give you 2 sentences of information, but what those 2 sentences of information does is that when you read that and you sit to give a mock later on, it's very easy for you to make an educated guess after, when you already have a certain amount of knowledge on that topic.
For me, like, I had my mother quizzing me every day about whatever I've studied for GK. And then whenever I used to go to school, I used to irritate my friends into telling me whatever I have studied, like literally every information, any random fact, and in fact, even they used to add on information. And then I used to listen to my father having discussions with my brother about any random topic which is happening, and just listening to those discussions just for fun helped me a lot.
For me, personally, because after he said Amit sir, I was like, how can I forget my biggest source of intimidation for GK, which was Vineet sir. I think I was so scared early morning. This was the first thing, and he would just show us that, you know, this actually came in the paper, you aren't that smart. So I think that's why what me and Sanvi also used to do was we would curate lists, and we would write all the important topics of the month, and we would check it with him. And if he wanted to add something, then we would add that. Or if he was like, you know, this is not relevant, then we would cut that. So I would just like to say Vineet sir was probably part of the reason why I was consistently doing GK, because the joy you get when you answer his Sunday morning questions right, I don't think I've received that kind of joy ever. And also another thing which I would like to say is that use your school's library, because I think a lot of school libraries do keep the newspapers. So what I used to do was whenever we had a free period or something, I was very fortunately in the good graces of my librarian. So I would just like beg her and be like, can I please take the newspaper to my class? And I would read the newspaper. And because I had a lot of friends who were studying for actual only commerce, so they would have a lot of economics news or whatever, so they would give that to me also. So it was just a lot of conversation, which I think is very important. Like, that's the best way of retaining the information you've taken in.
I think one more thing I'd like to say is remaining immersed in it throughout the 2 years was really important for me. I mean, I think nobody really prepared for it or retained information in the first year, but I used to read the newspapers pretty frequently, consistently every day, and having that kind of worldview and having that perspective helped me a lot, as somebody said, in guesswork. So you know how these international relations work, and you know that this event is going on right now, and it will happen the same time next year. So I think that's really important. And I think somebody else also mentioned the audio news podcast. So there's a 3 Things news podcast that comes on, that gets out every day, basically. So in the morning on my way to school, I would listen to it, or during recess, I would listen to it, basically.
Okay, so one thing, guys, this is a takeaway that I can think about from all the discussion we have had. Guys, be consistent. With GK, if you are in your 12th now, writing your CLAT in December, I think A should be consistent with it. Technology and social media is good, provided you don't become its victims or an addict to it, and you know how to use it for GK. 3, please use help. You can use any help you want for GK. It could be your mother, father, it could be your teachers, it could be your sibling, but it helps to, it could be your friend who is preparing for CLAT with you. It helps to have them prepare the GK together. And the last, there is never going to be that one source that works for everyone. Someone spoke about newspaper being great. Indian Express was amazing. But I'm sure there will be a lot of people who would not have referred to Indian Express and still got in. Some people would have preferred News Canvas over Manthan, Manthan over News Canvas. I'm sure that happens, but you have to find eventually what works for you. Yeah, being consistent is the key, absolute key. One thing I'm sure works is to have time, and this is the advice I would give to the CLAT 26 next year. It helps to have taken care of the other sections so that you have more time to give in 12th standard for GK. It really helps, right? And you have to be creative. A lot of people were very creative in terms of finding the time. Anyone traveling from, let's say, Ville Parle to VT or Churchgate, I think that's a great 45 to 50 minutes in the train to do your GK. Free lectures in school or college, great time to do GK. So be innovative. Have GK can be fun if you want to make it fun, if you make it into some kind of a carrot stick approach. But yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to be a little creative, take help, and that's pretty much what works, right? And use the mocks. I think the mocks also are a great source of giving you a lot of topics that you need to do well. Okay, let's go to the next section, which is the quant. There are a few science kids here, which I'm sure work for you. You are more confident about the math?
Not necessarily. Like at the start, I was like, oh yeah, math will be easy and all. But like once you actually see it, it's completely different from like the science we study. Like in 11th and 12th, it's all like alphabets and stuff like that. You don't actually have like different numbers. You don't have multiplication or subtraction. You have calculators and all for that. You don't have to do that.
Right?
Yeah. So it's a bit of a shock for me. I was like, oh, I can do this. But then in the first few mocks, I wasn't able to like finish it in time and do it completely. So I actually had to sit and practice it for a bit. And then once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy. It's pretty basic. Like if you saw this time's CLAT, 12 questions. One set was pretty easy. The second set was a bit tedious because the numbers were pretty big. And you could get messed up in the calculation. But I think you need to practice on the slightly harder sets, the slightly harder numbers. And once you get your time for that down, I'm pretty sure you'll be set for like your CLAT.
I completely agree. I also took applied maths in 11th and 12th, and they're just like chalk and cheese. They're completely different. I've always felt CLAT maths is sort of like a reading section that is disguising itself as maths, where the raw maths theory, the calculation is not that bad, but the wording around it and the flowery language they use to trip you up is really, that can really mess you up in the paper. And I think Prasanna sir's maths classes, attend every single one of them. His maths Google Meet sessions, attend all of them. They're by far the most useful resource for maths. And another thing, for if you're good at maths, one big learning from me from the paper itself is do not have too much ego with it. Do not think, oh, these 12 questions are easy, I can finish it in 7 minutes, and then I'll have extra time for the rest of the questions. And what will end up happening is in that 7 minutes, like me, you will make mistakes that you would not have made in your sleep in the mocks. But because you thought you were going to be able to finish the math section so quickly and so well, and you weren't patient and didn't take that one extra minute, you'll end up losing marks there, which is very important.
Yeah, I think the key difference to note is that we have quants and not maths. So that is where I think the entire thing plays, that we have a speed versus accuracy race that we have to run. So taking any question personally will lead you onto the downside of it, because even if you think you're very good at maths or you're a science or commerce kid, at the end of the day, you have to get marks. That's the only thing that matters. So whether it's marks from this section or that section, that really doesn't matter when you get the rank. So ensuring that you don't take any question to heart or any question personally will ensure that you get, and even the concepts that come for CLAT quants are very basic. It's 10th grade math, but the issue is that you have to do it within a specific time limit. So I think you might have reiterated this to the students already, that go back to your basics, get your tables, squares, cubes, inverses, percentages all sorted. That will help you minimize your calculation time a lot, so that you don't have to do 13 sevens and 91 with pen and paper. And I think that will inevitably save up a lot of time for your quant section.
I was also going to say the same thing. Do your tables, squares, and inverses. And also, like, I've noticed a lot of people, they don't who don't like, I like maths. So the people who don't like maths, they leave it for the very end. So normally you don't get time to do maths, so they just leave it. So you don't attempt those questions. But then I personally feel maths is the only reason I got into GNLU, because if I'm comparing it with my friends, none of them attended the math section. So I would say don't leave your maths for the end. Keep it in between the reading sections.
For me, I was actually very confident about maths initially. But then when I started giving mocks, and I was like, no, this is definitely not like science maths. And it is more about commercial, like interests and profit and loss. So yeah, definitely Prasanth sir's classes did help a lot, because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know the strategy to doing it, learning reverse fractions and all that. So yeah, that definitely helped me.
So I'm stereotyping here, but I would say that a good majority of people choose law.
Is it audible?
Yeah, so I'm stereotyping, but a good majority of kids choose law because they want to escape math. So I think in that way, math can be your biggest weapon, because a lot of people don't even attempt the section. And I've found that quants in quants appearances are deceptive. The tougher looking sections are actually very easy. The tougher passages that are really long, like 2-3 paragraphs long, those turn out to be the easiest. But the ones that 1 or 2 liners that you spend 10-15 minutes on, they're actually so tough and you never crack them. So I would say that take time, be calm, and read every single line, and you'll get it.
Yeah, I think I dropped maths actually in my 11th and 12th grade. I chose another elective over it. And I used to think that, that would be my biggest impediment. And we had a switch in teachers in the middle of the 2 years. And I used to think I was so good at maths until you came and taught us. Because in your classes, I used to do horribly. And I remember that I've been told multiple times that I used to take the most complicated approach to maths possible, because that was what was ingrained in me through ICSE maths till 10th. So I think it's pretty simple, as many kids said. It's like 8th grade maths when it boils down to it. But the flowery language around it, as he said, is what really trips you, what will trick you eventually. And I think obviously practice is a big thing, but I used to have those tables and inverses printed out in front of me on my desk. So even when I was studying for my 12th commerce, I used to still look them up whenever I was taking breaks. So instead of going to my phone, I used to do that, and I used to recite that to my mother or my parents. So as you said, use everyone.
Okay, so to give everyone some background, I was so terrible at math that I couldn't do 15 minus 7 without using my fingers. And here I was trying to give CLAT, which had quants, and that is the section that gives you an edge over everyone else. And I remember sitting in class with Prasanth sir once, and sir taking a good 15 minutes of class time trying to explain to me why 1/4 of a number is 25% of a number. And the entire class was laughing, and it was just horrible. But this is just me trying to motivate everyone that's giving CLAT, that if you think you're bad at quants and you have that mental block, you are not worse than me. And out of every single person that I've spoken to that has gotten into NLSIU or another top 3 NLU or a top 10, they have not gotten here without giving quants. So you absolutely have to give that section. And if you're bad at it, just sit with it for 15 minutes, 20 minutes every day. Solve the questions that came in your mocks, and you don't have to do much. It's very easy to practice this, but you just have to do it every day.
Yeah, I think adding on to what she said, from our paper, CLAT 2024, and I think for any CLAT that is going to come now with the reduced pattern of 120 questions, maths will be the most impact-creating and rank-defining section, if I should say, because it has the least impact when we consider the paper pattern change, but it will definitely give you the leverage that you need that helps you to get ahead and get those rank numbers.
Sure. Guys, a couple of things I would like to just add here. A, with the number of questions now going from 150 to 120, till it was 150, it was probably at least a possibility of getting into a top NLU without doing math. I think that possibility just got squashed completely now. So if you're aiming for any of the top NLUs, chances are that GK and maths could well be the delta. That could well be the differentiator eventually, because I've not seen too many toppers leaving an entire set in RC or legal or logic, but a lot of people leave an entire set in math. So if you can actually do that one set extra, it makes a massive, massive difference to your chances, right? Okay, so that's as far as quant is concerned. We'll take some questions also on it. We'll go now to the last segment of the session, which is the support, right? And I want to, all of you, give a big shout to whoever supported you, your parents, your siblings, your mentors, whoever, your friends. You want to thank someone, your parents, please. I know a lot of you have already mentioned them in terms of how they helped you, but I'm saying beyond the just helping you with your GK, the sacrifices they made. Some of them would have probably made certain sacrifices for you guys. You want to say something about that? Please, the forum is all yours.
My parents were my biggest emotional support, for sure, more than anyone else. Every week after giving a mock, I used to come home depressed, because all my mock scores were so bad, and I used to just feel, why am I doing CLAT? Why am I even doing this? I used to be low so badly every week. So my mom, especially my mom, she was a huge support to me, and she used to counsel me, and she was the best. And I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Whatever you guys did, all the sacrifices that you made, and I love you.
For me, again, it was my parents and my sister who was constantly there for me, because again, as she said, after giving mock every week, I used to come home very depressed, and they were like, it's okay, no problem, next time do better, next time do better. And yeah, that better never came, till last November it never came, but yeah, they were still there. And yeah, since we live in a very clustered home, I used to wake up early at nights, very 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. studying, constantly studying. So my parents used to wake up with me, and they were like, okay, take coffee, do this, I'm here with you. So yeah, I love you.
Definitely want to thank my parents for supporting me throughout the journey. My mom, she had to wake up at 5:45 in the morning because my school started at 7 o'clock. And towards the end, I was sleeping at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the night. And both of them were there giving me coffee, giving me Maggie, completely. They were always supportive. It was very helpful knowing that they're there. And like someone else, I started with engineering, and then I shifted to law. So there are not many people who have parents so supportive to have that shift. So definitely, thank you so much.
I think the Maggie at night would probably help you in your 5 years at NLU. You're going to survive a lot on that.
My parents were my rock, and they were there for me emotionally whenever I was depressed or feeling low. And one thing I would like to say is that my father used to make these spreadsheets where he used to compare over like my past 10 mocks, my scores in different sections, to help me understand what section is pulling me down so I can concentrate my entire effort in that one section. So that was helpful.
I would like to I would like to thank my parents. I cannot wake up with by an alarm. So my mom, she used to wake up just to wake me, and my dad helped me with maths. My sister, she didn't do anything, but she used to look at me she used to give me very disapproving looks whenever I didn't study. So that was motivating. And my friends, I used to do GK with them. I used to be on calls with them. They're doing CA, they're not doing CLAT. They didn't need the GK, so they would listen. They would listen to me till 4 a.m. and stuff. So thank you, everyone.
Don't blame your sister. Maybe your mom told her to do that.
So, yeah, my parents and my family was my biggest support during these 2 years. I'm being very honest and telling you all, if my parents came to CLAT and sat and gave that paper with me, we would get the exact same score, because they quite literally prepared for this exam with me. Every day after my dad came back home from work, YouTube used to be on, and there was a Varun Deval NLSIU vlog playing on the TV to try to motivate me to do better. My mom used to sit and analyze, both my parents used to sit and analyze every single mock with me. We used to see why I'm getting these questions wrong, why it's turning into a cycle, if I've gotten it wrong before. If I'm getting it correct, that means I should give less time to this and give more time to that. And my grandparents for being so understanding. I used to be up till 4 a.m., sometimes sitting in the hall like a ghost with my books open, and they were so supportive and they were so helpful throughout. So yeah, definitely my parents and my entire family.
Yeah, I think.
And my brother.
Yeah, I think for most people, parents and your family play a very important. They essentially become your backbone in the preparation. And I think I pestered them to a point where I think they would get so irritated, because every morning I would wake up and I go to my father and saying, "Papa, phir GK mein 2 mil raha hai." So he would not know essentially what to do, because he was not very knowledgeable about the CLAT world. But he would sit down, he would listen to me, we would dissect the section together, whether it's a mental block or it's something that I'm doing wrong in those 2 hours. So parents and family play a very important role. I think faculty is one point I'd like to mention as well. To be very active and coordinate with your faculty, because the teachers that are teaching you right now have seen similar students for a long period of time, for many years. So they know the pattern, they know where you're going wrong. So I would say when you're analyzing with them, go to them, take a complete dissection of where you're going wrong, and probably they'd be able to give you better insights. So I think Vineet sir would roast us every Sunday. 9 a.m. we would all come, open our books, and we would like, ये week का GK तो हमने बहुत अच्छे से ही किया है. And then he would ask one tiny fact from somewhere, and all our faces would just droop. So faculty, friends, parents, all of them play a major role.
I feel like the fact that I'm here shows my parents did a pretty good job. I mean, for me personally, I think my parents didn't micromanage me too much and allowed me freedom to study how I wanted. And sometimes when career launchers send the report card of the mocks, and it was a bit less, I used to just complain about the mock. I used to say it's the mock's fault. And then my parents believed me, and they said, yeah, don't worry, we know it's the mock's fault. Which gave me some confidence. But yeah, that was very nice of them. And my mom made, sometimes when I was studying late and studying for long hours, my mom made pretty good food, which kept me going.
So there are a lot of people I'd like to thanks. Number one, my family. My mother, she dedicated a lot of time. She sacrificed that one entire year of her social life, of her ambitions as well. She did give me a lot of time. My father, who's given me number of pep talks, I'm pretty sure he remembers each and every word he's told me. It used to happen every week. My brother used to entertain me after my bad mock score when I used to get all cranky. Then there is this friend of mine, Parental. She was there throughout. Both of us used to, even she gave CLAT. So both of us used to cry at night कि हमारा क्या होगा, NLS तो दूर की बात है. And then then the faculty for sure. Palash sir, who used to get so irritated with the logic, like who I used to irritate a lot because logic was very difficult for me throughout. If there is a certain pattern, I used to consistently follow that pattern only in all questions, which he had to make sure that that didn't happen. Then there's Mohan sir too, who was there throughout the entire journey. And then definitely my house helps. They used to clean the room. I'm like, okay, मैं पढ़ रही हूँ, बाद में साफ करना. They used to accommodate because of my timing. So yeah, definitely. Thank you.
I think the last Achievers Meet, I went home and I told my parents that I would bring them on stage the next year. So I think that was the biggest thing I wanted to do. And as everybody said, I used to get like cranky even before the results came in for the mocks. I used to get cranky the day of the mock. So they used to pick me up after the mock every time. And you know, my mother would bring me some street food after the mock to kind of cheer me up as well. And I think another thing was the faculty, because I think somebody else mentioned it as well. Namrata Miss used to keep like 15 minutes of our class in the beginning just to entertain us, and then she'd move on to, you know, actual study. Because all of us used to be like, again, we have to come to class, again, we have to come to class every week. And I think that was a big part. And down to the November of the year, I used to go with my parents to meet you because I was doing so badly in mocks, and I used to meet Amol sir. And I think that was a really big help as well, because I, you know, having that mental block and thinking that, you know, maybe it's not going to happen, maybe law is not for me, is a big, it's a big game changer in itself. And I think after every mock result, I used to come back and I used to say, you know, this time thoda niche gaya, and they used to say, it's okay, we have private as well, you know, private universities are always a choice. I think that was one thing, to have that, you know, to be that accommodating towards someone who's preparing. So yeah, I would give a big thanks to my family.
I would like to thank my parents for pushing me to do GK. I only did GK in November because they were like, okay, abhi to karna hi padega, ek hi mahina baki hai. So that's when I actually started. And I would also like to thank Vineet sir. I've gone to him so many times. I used to take like 30 doubts of legal, and I used to go with him. And then he would sit and he would solve everything, and that really helped. And I would also like to thank my brother. He used to constantly annoy me that tera hone nahi wala hai, so that I would actually study.
I have so many people to thank, but similar to Rajvini, I have a very funny thing. After both last 2 years CL Achievers Meet, moment we got into the car, my mother would sit down in the seat and be like, I can already imagine next year, I can see it in my eyes. You will go onto the stage and get your thing, and you will get, and we used to joke, she's more excited about that than the college itself. Amma, I've done it, so thank you. But yeah, I can't thank my parents and my sister enough. They were always on top of me, making sure I did my work. And my parents both work with Microsoft Excel and spreadsheets a lot, and they were so helpful. They took time out of their office hours. They brought me to office day after day to study there, and they took time. They made a full spreadsheet with every single mock using all the drill down analysis, and they showed me, this is your English logical legal score. This is the ones where it is an outlier because you did worse than usual. This is better than usual. This is your average without that. This is your average with that. It was so helpful, it was amazing. And my sister was also a great help. Every time I was a bit of a brat and I was like, "Arey yaar, amma appa bahut chilla rahe hain, mujhe nahi karna hai kuch bhi." She would always be there and be like, calm down, it's okay, chill a little, it's fine. So I don't say it enough, but I love all three of you. Thank you so much. And the other, I would love to thank my friends. I think Mugdha really should get a lot of thanks from me. She was there for GK from the start, and I don't think I would have been as consistent and dedicated without her, without a message at 9 o'clock every day. So thank you so much. And the faculty as well. I've already waxed lyrical about Amit sir already. And Namrata ma'am was just the coolest, most amazing legal teacher ever. She ordered donuts for us once in class when we were all down. And I remember very specifically, I'll never forget, the day before CLAT and the day after CLAT, she specifically called me and she was like, it's okay, don't worry, don't put too much effort now. And after CLAT, it's like, stop worrying about it. And that was so helpful, I'll never forget it. Thank you so much, Namrata ma'am. And the CL faculty in general, like Amol sir, all the assistants, the desk duty, they are all so helpful, and they're just waiting to help you. You need to ask. And finally, I'm sorry for taking so long, Prasanna sir, I think deserves more thank you than almost anyone else from us, because me and my parents, I'm sure he would have gone sick of seeing us so much. We went to him 5 times booking appointments, and every time he sat down with us, he said he would sit for 30 minutes, he sat for 2 hours, and he was just so helpful and so patient and so kind. So thank you so much, Prasanna sir.
I would like to thank my parents
for always having faith in me and for putting up with me, because I remember I always used to be so irritated and down and gloomy because even when I had like low marks in my mocks earlier, I used to be really down, but they always used to encourage me by telling me, oh, it's just the first few mocks, with practice you'll get it. And I really appreciate that they told me that. And I would also like to thank my sister. I mean, she used to study beside me, so basically she's doing science, and seeing the hard work she used to put into her studies really motivated me to study for my own this. So thank you, all three of you.
So my dad is right there sitting and he's signaling me it's okay if I don't thank him, but I really have to thank my parents. They have been the biggest support for me. My dad would come to me every day with some interesting legal news he heard, and he'll be like, oh, did you know this happened? And I'm like, okay, that's good. And also my sister, she was my biggest support. She moved out for college, but she would FaceTime me every single day and be like, it's okay, chill, Nidhi, you'll do it, it's okay. My best friend who used to stay awake with me till 3 a.m., even the night before CLAT, she was awake with me till 3 a.m. to make sure I studied and I did well in my CLAT. And I would also like to thank that one girl who sat in front of me in college every day. She was also a CLAT aspirant, and she would just go on muttering something about GK news to her benchmate, and I would just listen to her while I slept. So thank you.
For me, I think I would first, I don't say this a lot because a lot of people haven't seen me interact with my brother, but I would like to thank my brother first and foremost, because I think because he has given JE, so that's obviously an exam which a huge part of the population gives. So he was one of the people who would understand the circumstances, and that the circumstances right now cannot be compared to 10 years ago or something. So he would very well understand the percentiles and percentages when my parents would be like, first kyun nahi ho tum? First hona chahiye. So he was very understanding that way. And my parents, I can't thank them enough, because they were more of a tough love kind of people. They were more like tough love, because when I used to come crying, they used to be more rational and be like, this is why you have got this less. It's not the mock, it's you. It was never the mock for them. So yeah, it was very, very helpful, because my dad, he's very knowledgeable about GK. So I would force him, like he would, as soon as he would be inside the house, I would be like, okay, so I learned this today, explain it to me. Like explain this economics news to me. And I would also like to specifically mention here Sanvi and Advait. Advait for GK, and whenever I would need the Twitter knowledge, he would be there. Sanvi, because I think I haven't mentioned this before, but the last month of the last few months, I think last 2 months before CLAT, we gave a mock every single day, and then we would call each other, chal analysis karne, and then we would be there. And I remember the World Cup would be on, so we would be so completely occupied, but both of us being there at the same time, it was very helpful. And then I had 2 friends also who gave CLAT this year who would do GK along with me. And also then, sorry for taking so long, but I have 3 friends who did not give CLAT, Alia, Naman, and Neha. I can't thank them enough, because when I couldn't rant to my parents, I would rant to them by using some swear words, which would be the only things which would come out of my mouth at that time. So they were very helpful. And finally, Vineet sir has been the biggest support of it all. Your demotivation was the true motivation. So yeah. And also the McDonald's worker who let us sit outside there when we did not buy anything, but she let us sit in the shop for like 2 hours straight doing GK, and she was just like, it's okay, you can continue. So yeah.
Okay, wonderful. So before I give it to the audience, we can have some audience questions. Are the mics there? Yeah, they're right. Okay, just one small, a very, very important thing which I forgot, and that is the role of mocks, right? And how important was it? How many of you were not consistent with your mocks? So one thing, guys, it's almost a given. In my last 15 years, there's an extremely high correlation between being consistent with your mocks and the success that you get. I haven't seen too many kids who would have sat on the stage and said, I was not regular with my mocks, right? So anyone wants, just a few opinions here. How did you go about with the mocks? What was the role that mocks played in your progress? Just
I
a
think
few opinions
mocks
here.
play a very important role with an exam like CLAT, which is something very different from JEE NEET because you don't have anything to apply mechanically. It's everything that's application based. So practice more than learning plays a very important role, which is sorted via mocks. I think as Mugdha mentioned, the last month we would give a mock every single day and we would give it at our different times and then sit down at a mutual time in the evening to analyze it. So giving mocks and analyzing them, because otherwise I think it's a waste to give them. Analysis of it, sound analysis, and giving it consistently will sort 75% of your prep.
Wonderful.
I think practice is key. And I think 1 month before CLAT, I used to give mocks every day. And the day the CLAT consortium announced the timing of CLAT, 2 to 4 p.m., from the next day, I started giving mocks from 2 to 4 p.m. to adjust my brain and my
body clock to it. Wonderful.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one thing that's very important. I felt give the mocks at a similar time as CLAT. A couple other things is never miss any of your mocks. They're the single most important thing. I got sick a couple of times. You all get sick. In that case, you can just call up the faculty and say, hi, I can't come in for the mock this time. I'm sick. Can you just keep it aside? And next time you go for class, you can pick it up and do it at home and analyze with aspiration afterwards. Another thing is I would recommend using pen instead of pencil because it's not a massive change, but it's still important. And yeah, other than that, analysis of your mock is just super, super important. Do the method that they always give you. Wait a couple hours or a day after the mock. Do it again without a time limit. And then analyze both your scores so you know whether it's because of time pressure or because of the questions. And yeah, that's about it.
I feel like mocks can be a bit overrated in certain instances. You shouldn't give like excessive amounts of them and burn out because they might have the opposite effect. Like sometimes instead of mocks, I would just prefer to go on a website like Aeon and read essays and try to understand them as opposed to mocks because sometimes you get bored of reading those same passages in mocks. And at the end of the day, what you're trying to do through mocks is improve your comprehension ability and ability to understand vocabulary in context. So I would prefer to go online, go on websites and read for like 2-3 hours and understand what I'm reading and then explain it to someone else, and that's I think equally helpful.
I think that mocks are really important because they tell you where you stand and on which sections you need to focus. So when I used to give my mocks, I realized I really needed to focus on logical, and also analyzing the mocks is very important. I would say I would put that at the top because later, more near to CLAT, I used to analyze my mocks because when you make mistakes, it's also important to analyze them so you don't make the same mistakes. And also giving mocks is practice, basically.
Okay.
So, like she said, analyzing is equally, if not more important than the mock itself. And one thing, especially in reading sections, is not just to understand why the correct answer is correct, but also why your answer is wrong and understand the entire thought process. Secondly, mocks also help prepare you emotionally because that's the lowest you can go. It's like prepares you for the worst case scenario that it cannot be worse than this. So that is also one more benefit.
Wonderful.
Another major tip would be, if you can, please go and give your mocks offline. Do not give them on a laptop and do not give them on your phone or tablet. Please give them offline and give each mock like that mock is CLAT. And if you think you want to attempt quants in the actual CLAT paper, you have to attempt it in every single mock you give, no matter how difficult quants is.
For me, when I started giving mocks earlier, I couldn't complete my whole paper. So an advice from me would be to read novels other than newspaper, I would say. I started reading a lot of novels, and when I came back to the mocks, and then I was able to complete that whole paper, then it was 150 marks. So yeah, that's my advice. And one more thing for the people who will be giving CLAT right now, do not get demotivated by your CLAT scores. It doesn't define your real CLAT. It definitely doesn't. Yeah.
The fruits of not giving up are disproportionately high. Please remember that. So you have to be a fighter. You have to just keep on fighting till the end. I'll now open it up. We can have some questions. If anyone wants to ask any of these panelists any of the questions, we have tried to cover some of the stuff, but it will be nice if you could ask some questions here.
My name is Navya, and congratulations to every one of you. I really want to be there one day. So I just wanted to ask you all, how do we divide the time into current affairs, vocabulary, and maths, quant, and everything? Because I think so it's very, very overwhelming to do. So sometimes I get demotivated.
You're talking about the time in the actual paper?
No, I'm not talking like the preparation when you're
The preparation time.
I would personally, I did maths. I would suggest you do maths every day. I think 30 minutes maths every day. If you do it consistently, it's enough. And GK every day, GK maths every day. The other 3 reading sections, you can divide them. So today, if you do do logic and legal, then tomorrow do English and legal. So I think maths and GK every day. The other 3, your choice.
It comes with the analysis of the mocks as well. You have to kind of see your strong points and your weaknesses, obviously. So I don't think I ever spent time practicing English at home. That mock used to be my practice for English, but I knew that I was bad at quants. I was not that good at GK, obviously. So doing that consistently. So you have to figure out your strengths and your weaknesses, because I know many students, as you said, vocab, spending time on that. And I used to know that I was pretty good at it and I could afford to not practice it at home. So I think having that knowledge of where you stand as well matters a lot.
Okay, any other questions?
I wanted to understand if any of them, any of their families come from a legal background.
I would like to answer that. To give the CLAT paper, you do not need to remember the law or to know the law. You're going to law school to learn the law. To answer personally, no, nobody from my family comes from the legal background. What you need to have is an understanding of the current affairs that is going around right now, and to know static GK, and just to have good comprehension reading skills. You do not need to know the law, and that is what we had been told in our classes as well. Do not sit to memorize contracts and do not sit to memorize torts. You're going to law school to do that. Right now you have to just focus on how to attempt the CLAT paper, which does not require you to know the law. So yeah.
Yeah, I think one more thing was, if you're trying to help out your children, you don't, as you said, none of my parents were lawyers or are lawyers currently. My dad used to send me links from UPSC YouTube channels who used to discuss GK. So I think you do not need to be of legal background or to have any knowledge of the law in any sense. And just understand, I used to tell my parents I need help in GK and I need help memorizing my tables and inverses and all of that, what Prasan sir told us to do. So just sit there with them to memorize. That's all my parents did.
Yeah, even those things are not 100% necessary. The biggest help that I think you could possibly give is just giving them space, giving them time, making sure the house is quiet when they're studying, stuff like that, giving them comfort and motivation after a bad mock score, giving them that's the biggest support you can give. All of the other stuff is great, but it's not as necessary.
Hi, if I can answer. I'm Madhura's mom. We both are doctors and we have no idea about the legal field. So for us also it was extremely daunting. And to see her so depressed after every mock, I think that was our main support. The other thing is printing reams and reams of mocks. That's all I've done for the last 2-3 months before her mocks. I think that's it, because we have zero idea. Help them with a little GK and give them a whole lot of support. And there's always private colleges.
That's very, very helpful.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So hello guys, I'm Nachiket and I'm going to be choosing a college. So how important is the attendance requirement of the college, or does it hold any relevance at all?
Can I answer this? So I was from NM college and we have a very strict attendance policy of 75%. So I would say it does not matter, because with 75% I did well in boards and I did well in CLAT. So I think you can manage it all if you do it properly, if you really want to do it. You can still go to college and then you can still have fun with your friends, you can still study. So I don't think the attendance matters.
Okay, thank you.
But still, since you're choosing it right now, choose wisely. It would be better to choose a college which has no attendance, less attendance issues.
Yeah, I would not suggest NM college, but but it's possible.
Yeah, I think adding on to Divya, I was part of St. Xavier's College for 2 years, which also has 75% attendance threshold plus the traveling time. And I think that's what me and Sarah were discussing. She was in HR, which doesn't have an attendance threshold. So between the two, since you're choosing, again, as she mentioned, please take your time and choose, because it will really not matter once you end up in a good tier 1 law school that which college you were for your +1 and +2. So please try and choose a college that has less burden, less travel time, less academic pressure on you. And I think that will ease out the pressure. In retrospect, it doesn't matter once you've cracked it. But to ease out the burden, it will definitely pay a lot.
Also, I would just like to add on, if you're considering schools, I think what really helps is like talking to the teachers and explaining to them like, I will be needing this time off, because that really helps and they really understand your situation. But for that, you need to kind of create a reputation for yourself where they have enough belief in you that you will be able to manage both. Because I was from RN Podar, Santa Cruz, so that obviously as a school has very strict attendance threshold. But despite that, when I needed an off, because I did not attend school at all in October and November, so my mom went and spoke to the management and they understood my situation that way. So that really helps, just speaking to someone who has the power to let you, give you a leverage.
I have a simple take. If you're entering 11th, if you're in 12th, entering 12th, it doesn't matter, you already taken the decision. You can't change it now. If you are in 10 going to 11th, look, you have 1.5 years to prepare for it. So I don't think you can put that as an excuse. The college cannot be the reason why you did not make it to the NLU of your choice. So if you use your 11th wisely, I mean, we have students here who come from ISC science. I believe that's as tough as it can get. I mean, I'm assuming that science is perceived to be the toughest by most people. And within that, ISC board is considered to be the toughest board. If those guys can make it, I mean, 4 years back, 5 years back, there was a girl from Cathedral, Tansa Shah, All India rank 3 in CLAT, All India rank 1 in ISC, right? So, look, you are not expected to be rank 1 All India in the 12th, but if you are in 11th, yeah, choose it wisely. But that should not be the excuse, is what I'm saying, right? Every college will have its pros and cons, but yeah, think wisely before you go ahead with it.
Hello, my name is Yashika, and right now I'm in 11th ISC Commerce. So this question is for Ananya, because you're also ISC Commerce. How did you manage your time? Because ISC Commerce is very demanding. So how do you manage your time? How do you give importance to CLAT, and how do you also
See, initially I had a lot of difficulties because, see, in ISC Commerce, it's not only, I didn't only have classes, but I had tuitions after them. So it was about the time. But later, as she said, you have to talk to your teachers and tell them that you are giving another exam like CLAT, and they will be more considerate of you, and they will give you more time. So I wrote a letter to school. And they let me take September off, and I was not forced to give a set of exams that I had in October. So that gave me good time to study for CLAT, to focus on CLAT.
I also want to ask a question. How to improve mock score stagnation?
How to improve the mock score stagnation? All of you must have faced that problem, scores not going up for a...
So, to improve your mock scores in general, and especially when they stagnate, which is extremely frustrating, you look at what you're getting wrong instead of what you're getting right. And then, for example, let's say, I'm giving you a personal example where there was this passage, culpable homicide and murder in legal, which I used to keep getting wrong, and I was so irritated by it. And to a point, that passage and a few passages like those were the reason my mock scores in legal were just not improving. So identify which topics in each section you are getting wrong or you're not able to attempt. Highlight those questions while you're giving the mock. So while you're giving a particular mock, and let's say you bluff a certain question, circle it. When you don't attempt a certain question, cross that question. When you attempt something that you're not sure about, again, highlight that question. After your mock, when you're analyzing your paper, go back to those questions, read the answer key and understand what you were thinking and why what you were thinking was incorrect or was correct when it comes to the bluff questions. For the questions that you didn't attempt, go to your faculty and ask them to explain it to you, and they very gladly will, and understand the basics of what you're getting wrong. And then in the next mock, first attempt those questions, then attempt what you know. And when you do that over the span of a few mocks, your scores should increase.
Yeah, I think that was completely spot on. The way to look at mocks for me was the mocks are 7,500 questions worth of data. And so if you are going through a lull, you'll go through like a dip in your performance. Being able to segregate, for example, in legal, I segregated legal knowledge and legal reasoning, and then the different types of fields of law that they were asking about. I would segregate in logic. There were so many different miscellaneous. There was synonyms. There were all sorts of sections. Your drill down analysis in your aspiration.ai account will be your best friend for that. And another thing that's very helpful is to switch up your order a lot. For the first 20-25 mocks, I switched my order every 5 mocks. Give a good amount of mocks with each order so that you know that over 5 mocks in this order, this was the type of score I was getting. This was how I felt after the mock. This was how I felt during the mock. And then you will land up on an order that works for you by the end. And that exercise is very, very helpful in my opinion. So.
Yeah, I think another tip that I'd like to add is try understanding the pattern in the certain questions and certain answers. So for example, with me, I faced a lot of stagnation in logic, where I would get different types of question wrong every different time. So if I would ace one particular set of questions, the next mock I would get something else wrong. So एक ऊपर जाता था, दूसरा नीचे आ जाता. At the end, I would result in the same score. So try figuring out a pattern, because there is always some sort of structure and some sort of pattern between each type of question and the answer they give. So compare the reasoning that's given in the answer key to what your thought process was when you were reading the question, and try figuring out, and I think as you read it, eventually you start imbibing their reasoning as well. So practice it, read it, compare, and eventually you will imbibe their reasoning as well.
I guess the common problem is how to analyze the mock, because that was the problem with me also. I actually learned how to analyze it last September, and that's when my mock score started going up. So it is mostly about you take last 5 mocks which you have given, and you see what is the constant thing which is going wrong in those 5 and 6 mocks. And then you take up that topic and you literally practice that topic, and then you again go to the another mock and see if that topic is again going wrong or not. If that's done, do it with the other. If that's done, do it with the other. So that's how you can do it, yeah.
Okay.
As Advait mentioned, the order is something that I think passes off as something trivial but matters a lot, because I used to face that issue a lot around the last few months prior to the exam, where I would stagnate, and I think you have to choose, and I went to Prasan sir with that issue as well, and he told me to choose an order according to your strengths and weaknesses, as I said, and kind of approach it that way for, say, a set number of mocks, and then switch up that order again if it's not working for you. So for me, I used to know that logic used to take up a lot of my mental capability, and it used to take a lot of energy in the beginning of the mock. So I would keep it at the beginning of my mock because I knew I was the freshest then, and then I would leave English or I would leave Quants to the last, because I knew that used to be sort of like a break for me, or that used to be something that I can sort of appear even when my psyche is kind of tired. So I would say the order matters a lot.
Okay. Anyone?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah. Last question, guys, because we are running out. Yeah.
So, firstly, congratulations to all of the toppers. A lot of us refer to more than one resource for GK, and considering that each of those are individually quite overwhelming, how do you condense that into some sort of notes or a summary that you can use to refer to on a consistent basis?
That would just be the manthans, right? Like the manthans are perfectly, they give you the topics and then they give you a brief write-up on each topic. So I personally didn't make notes. You can make notes, but I feel like they give it in a pretty concise format already, right? If anyone.
I was someone who would avidly make notes, and my main source, again, I can't stress this enough, was Indian Express Explained. Because the thing is, when there's a certain event going on, they'll cover very important parts of that event successively on those days. So initially, I was making physical notes, but then I realized that it was getting kind of taxing, so I would create Word documents. And if an event, for example, the Israel-Palestine war, which had so much history to cover, then I would make a separate document of that. And the thing is, I don't think there is a limit to the amount of information you can include in your documents. It's the time when you're satisfied and you're like, okay, fine, now I think I can stop. I think I know enough, because that's always a gamble you have to take, where you stop taking extra information and you're satisfied. I think the most important point is finding your level of satisfaction, and something which I learned from my seniors last year was either you can go in deep or you can learn about different topics very superficially. Again, that's a strategy. Different strategies work for different people. Maybe you want to go in the depth of a certain topic and that's the strategy which works for you, or you're more like, okay, fine, I'll just know the basics of this and the basics of that and I'll cover more topics. So yeah, it completely depends on your strategy that way.
So one thing that is there is that every year there are a new set of topics, and there are some topics that are more important than others. And obviously, as a human being, you can't comprehend like a complete knowledge about every single event that has happened. So one thing would be that find the most important events and know like literally every single fact about them, and maintain a normal, not a superficial, but a kind of in-between knowledge about the other events.
Okay. Yeah, I think with reference to your question of how the number of sources that you would refer for GK, I'd advise to stick to maybe 2 or maximum 3 sources, because I think in the initial part of the preparation, every student gets that FOMO idea out of GK. We have to cover every single topic that's there and every news that's happening in the last 24 hours. And that will essentially not bode well for you in the long run. So try sticking to 2, maximum 3 topics. Keep one with your primary reliance. For me, it was the newspapers. As Mugdha mentioned, Indian Express Explained. We in fact would do a common shared Google Docs this thing where we would divide topics within ourselves and we would start putting all information there. So it would save us time for research, and we would use the same documents or manthans for revision later. So do one as your main base for GK, and then you can use the other sources and compendiums for your revision.
Yeah, and to build off of that, that's one of the reasons I think starting GK early is very important. You technically don't need to start reading any earlier than like say 7 months, which is where the CLAT GK will come from. But starting early, it builds you a map. It allows you to relate other information to stuff you have learned previously. So that's very important. And similar to how I said, in the early stages, you can switch up your mock order. You can also switch up your sources in GK in the early stages. So if you start a year early, you have that freedom to change your source over and over again until you land up on one that works for you. So I switched from Manthans to News Canvas to all sorts of different sites. And by the last 7 months, I was just doing Drishti IAS with some Manthans for hours and hours a day, and that really worked for me. So yeah.
If you have doubts on what kind of sources to be included in your notes, there is a masterclass which CL takes every week, a GK masterclass it is. It's all over India. So there, sir really asks very parallel questions related to a particular topic, and so you can understand ki, yeah, okay, this is the depth I have to go for that topic, and this is the depth I have to go for that topic. So that really helps. So you can refer to that CL masterclass.
Okay, I guess.
I have a question.
Okay, the last.
I just want to know how much time per day did people spend studying? Like just even like a random time frame, just anything.
Last 3 months, last 6 months, you need to specify that.
Last 6 months.
Last 6 months, okay. 6 months to go, average time per day.
Okay, so I used to give 2 to 3 mocks per week. Last 4 months was maybe 3 mocks per week. Last 6 months, I'd say 2 mocks per week. So per day, I would say I gave a mock. Let's say I gave a mock on Monday, so 2 hours to give the mock. And then after that, I would maybe do something that was less taxing to the brain, like go through a daily reading on News Canvas or something like that. And then the next day, I would analyze the mock, which takes another hour, 2 hours. So on average, including, so I didn't do reading sections separately. Reading sections, the practice that I gave to my reading sections were the mocks that I was giving, and then the analysis additionally. So an average of 3-4 hours worked best for me because I focused on quality over quantity. When I was studying, I was just studying. There were no distractions whatsoever. And then once that studying was done, it allowed me to focus on my social life and focus on other things that brought me joy. And I feel like that's what helped me not get burnt out in the last 6 months.
Yeah, just the number of hours now, guys. Quick. Yeah, anyone? Number of hours per day?
I did not categorize my day into a number of hours, but I'd say last 1.5 months, you have to give it all that you've got, because you would be doing a mock every single day, analyze, doing GK, revision, maths, everything. So last 1.5 months, you press the accelerator and give everything you have.
Last 1 month, I would say 8 to 9 hours minimum.
For last 1 to 2 months, it was more than 14 hours for me. But before that, it was like 8 to 9 hours.
Yeah, for me it would be around 9 to 10 hours last 1 or 2 months. You have to give that much of time to actually get good marks.
Anyone here?
Last 1 month, I didn't do much. I did like 3.5 hours a day.
Ha! Finally.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, the max I studied was 4 to 5 hours any day because I couldn't keep my concentration so much.
For the year leading up to say 6 months, I did not more than 2-3 hours a day at maximum. From 6 and specifically 3 months onwards, I was putting in like 5-6 hours. Half of that was GK, and then in the last 1 month, the 3 weeks before the last week of the exam, I did not do too much because I did not want to tax myself. But the 3 weeks before that, I was putting in 8, 9, 10 hours a day.
I would just like to specify that most of the preparation I did in my last month was only GK. So it's not that I was giving 7 hours to maths or 7 hours to logic or English. That is something which you build before time. But if I remember my last 1 month, I think I was getting barely any sleep because me and a few of my friends who were ready to stay up till 3 a.m., we would just be doing GK. And I remember very clearly, I think 2 days before the exam, because we didn't want to risk the 1 day before CLAT sleep, we did GK for 10 hours straight. We were like, tum lunch यहाँ पे खाओ, तुम मेरे आगे खाओ, पर हम GK करके ही रहेंगे, because we wanted to do a whole revision of all the manthans. So yeah, like everyone has said, you need to really push the accelerator. There is no break in the last 1 month. You just need to give it your all, because just remember that if you really do give it your all, it's going to be really good after that. So yeah.
For me, it was 5 to 6 hours consistently for last like 6 months. But like 1 week into CLAT, I stopped studying, to be honest. I was just doing GK, and like 1 to 2 days, I'd completely stopped studying. I wanted like a proper rest. I was watching watching a movie or something. But yeah, that's how it was.
I guess it eventually boils down to how much you can put in, but whatever you put in, make sure they're giving everything for it. But the good thing is, instead of going all out in the last 1 month, it's always nice to start early. So take it seriously from now. I think 6 months is a good time. Build on it. You don't want to leave everything too late. That's not a great idea. And I'm sure everyone was now super pissed after the CLAT with the kind of GK that came after you did 10 hours, right? Okay, I think with that we'll stop. For the CLAT, 25 students who are taking the CLAT this year, there will be a CLAT boot camp that we'll be doing. The notification will come to you in the next couple of days. It's a 1-day event, and that's something which we'll plan to do regularly over. So in that boot camp, we'll also be telling you about how you need to approach the last 6 months. We are getting Jijo Srinivasan. He'll be flying from Trivandrum to kind of guide you guys on that. And we'll have those events happening regularly after that, so you will get to know about it. With that, thank you so much, guys. It was wonderful having you. I wish you all the best for your next 5 years and life ahead, right? So do well. Thank you, guys.
So can you give me a highlight of what you liked most?
let's say in a session, which was your learning?
Learning, I feel the tips which they gave about GK and logic.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. So wish to see you.
It was very nice. It was very helpful, and a lot of our queries got answered in it.
Very good. So I hope in the next I want to see you there.
Yes, definitely, sir. With your help, of course, I'm going to go with that.
Any highlight of the specific thing that you liked the most?
How they overcame the challenges that they faced. Like, I'm currently facing the same challenges, and like they motivated me and also like gave me help. Like, how can I overcome those challenges?
Thank you so much.
A very nice session. Let's see now, 2026, I'm going to give my CLAT. So let's see.
So all the very best. I think we'll see you there. So
Hopefully.
Can you also pick up a highlight which you really liked about the session?
To be honest, right now, I'm troubling with maths. So let's see now, after this, I'm going to start preparing.
Session was really good, and it was like, it gave a lot of motivation and like what to do, and like it helped a lot.
So I hope to see you in the next
Yeah.
on the stage,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right,
For sure.
So can you give me also a highlight that you really like most, like GK, maths? Any tip that you particularly like?
The tip that they gave about GK and maths was like really helpful, and about the mock test, like mock papers and all, that was like.
Thank you so much.
I liked it. It was very informative. So I really got the sense of how much I have to work for it.
And what was the main takeaway? Like, ma'am, would you like to say something?
I think the will to do it. And most of the kids, what I said, like they pestered they went to their teachers. I was telling her the same thing. We are from Borivali, so I know, sir. So I was telling her that you have to go and approach, otherwise it will not be done. So.
The event was very fun. It was very educational. I understood a lot of things from the achievers. And yes, sitting on that stage one day, it will obviously be a dream of mine. But that's not the only thing that we learned. What I understood more from them, rather than their their marks obviously, and their college, is more about their attitude. Yeah. That how consistent they were. That was what I liked more than the score or the college they got. Their attitude really inspired me today.
One of the key takeaway as a parent is how we should motivate our child for the exams, and what kind of help or what kind of support we can give her during her journey for the CLAT. That was one. Second is we found out what kind of a mindset these achievers are having, which we can prep our child for the same.
It was really helpful because I think we are all equally stressed when it comes to CLAT, and especially now that there's only 6 months left, it's so good to relate to people knowing that some of them had the same difficulties and we're not alone in that. So I think, it's really helpful to attend Achievers Meet.
It's a very encouraging session for all the newcomers who is wanted to give a CLAT this year or next year.
It was great, it was knowledgeable, helped me a lot.
Very good faculties which are helping a lot. So I would say, it's at the end of the day, it's a hard work from the kids. We are always there to support them, but they are the main pillars, they have to work hard. Background, we are there. We can give the best what we can. At the end of the day, the results matter. So the hard work matters. How much work and how much time you're dedicating, that's the way your results are standing.
It has motivated me, and it has taught me that it's okay even if you get the bad marks. You can improve them later. There's no need to demotivate, and you can take help from anyone, from anywhere. You need to be open to everyone, take help, and not get demotivated, and just give your best.
So like it has motivated me in many aspects, like how to take help from your friends, how to take help from your faculty, how to take help from your parents and everywhere around, and take chance for study for 10 to 15 hours a day, and also give mock tests and the newspaper, which is very important, and how to analyze the mock properly and everything.
A lot of tips, I think a lot of key things that I would keep in mind during my preparation, particularly related to time management, because I think that's a problem that even I face because I'm giving my 12th right now. So it's the two things together can become a little hectic, but what everyone said on stage, one thing is it made it feel really normal that it happened with them as well, but they cracked it, so then it's motivation that I could do it as well if I manage my time right and give time to CLAT. properly.
It was nice. I'm a little more hopeful now than I was before. How they spoke about the analysis, how important that is, and the sources of GK, and how much time we should spend. Like, I used to not put in that much.
I have no idea about what CLAT is.
Okay.
I'm totally new to it.
Okay.
I rely on her only for most of the thing.
Okay.
But yeah, it was motivating.
Okay.
Yeah, it motivated me, so definitely it will motivate her.